Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rhonda Joy. As Justina said, I'm with the Faculty of Education, and here behind me,
Dr. Jeanette Byrne. I'm in the School of Human Kinetics and Recreation.
and we are part of a research project along with Dr. Anne-Marie Sullivan and Dr. Jennifer Brown that addresses raising student awareness of transferable skills. I want to also note that we were fortunate enough to be able to get funding through Student Support Services for this project, so we're appreciative to Memorial University for providing the funding for this, and I hope that it's information that we can use going forward as well, because it's certainly been a valuable piece of research. I wanted to begin with a land acknowledgement, which I don't have with me. I'm sorry. I don't have that here, but just to acknowledge the lands upon which we're present. And introductions I've already done. And what we wanted to go over to today is looking at past and present career integrated learning at MUN, the how, the why, and the theory, and also student success, career readiness competencies, what they are, and how we develop them through this university and through the work we do here. Our current project and methodology, findings and limitations, and then looking at what's next. This, I think, is a really interesting quote and sums up what it is why what we're doing is so important. So our job is not to prepare students for something. Our job is to help students prepare themselves for anything. And I think that speaks to the volatility of the labor market that we're presently in, and how quickly our jobs are changing. The workforce is changing. What jobs are available right now may not exist in 10 or 20 years' time. So those transferable skills that we're talking about today will become really important, and are really important to our own careers, our own development, and it speaks to the importance of adaptability and flexibility as required. Flexibility and adaptability comes to mind even today as we look at this presentation and having to make some minor adjustments to the presentation format today, and it just in a day-to-day thing. And so being able to handle those adjustments and changes is certainly becoming part of the routine. When we look at the media and what the media talks about, they focus a lot on, you will hear it in the news often, there's a skills gap. What we would argue is that it's not a skills gap, but rather it is a lack of self-awareness. So the type of skills that employers are looking for and the type of skills that students have, it's not that they don't match, it's just that the awareness on the employer's end, but also the awareness on the student's end as to what their skill set is becoming more and more apparent, and we need to kind of close that gap, and through that is through a project like this, where students are learning to become more self-aware of not only the degree they're getting, but also those transferable skills that they learn while they complete their degree. This project is a project that began with myself and Dr. Robert Shea in 2010, and it was funded back then by the Counseling Foundation of Canada. We worked quite some time on this, and it was an idea. Jennifer's here. We'd like to do a quick introduction to Jennifer.
It's that kind of day. Something took me off campus unexpectedly, and I didn't think I was going to get back in time, so my apologies for my tardiness. But when I realized I was only 5 minutes late, I said, I'm coming anyway.
Yep, we're glad to have you.
I love to talk about it, so thank you, and my apologies for being late.
So this project began in a coffee shop on a napkin, and it was Rob Shea, and it was really his brainchild, and myself that sat down.
I came up with this fabulous idea, one that actually has been embraced across the country and other institutions. Well, here was the start. The research was done, and it was shown to be impactful to have these conversations with instructors to identify on their syllabus the skills that people were gaining as a result of the experiences they were having in the classroom. And the early results from that showed that it increased students' awareness of the skills that they were gaining as a result of the experiences, like writing a paper, like working in groups, and many other experiences that professors have throughout their curriculum. We had other institutions across the country that actually took this and picked it up, and their data shows similar work. We thought it was time to take that out again and do more with it, because we really feel like this brainchild of Rob's and Rhonda's being very humble here because her contribution to it was quite impactful as well, was to start it again at Memorial so that it was more broadly, I guess, going to reach a larger number of students, because we really do believe in this work. And we believe that increasing students' awareness of what they're gaining in the classroom, the skills and competencies they're gaining, actually helps with their transition when they finish up their courses and graduate and go out into the world of work. So that is where we are today, is picking up on the study from 10 years ago. I think it's about 10 years ago. Could be longer because I've lost all track of time. And we can't wait to share with you the data that will tell you if this is still an impactful practice to have in the classroom.
Thank you, Jennifer. So the Career Integrated Learning Project, why? It's based in experience and research in career development post-secondary. It's about recognizing that students need more opportunity to reflect on their post-secondary skills. There's a need, there's a lot of literature out there on student engagement and student persistence, and having students having knowledge of this makes a huge difference in terms of engaging students and having them persist and continue in their degrees and their studies. And the awareness of the need to integrate this career issue and reduce silos, to be able to make the connection between employers and students and what they're doing in their various components of their various aspects of their lives, not just university. Those competencies are gained in many places, and that awareness is what helps us make those connections, or helps students make those connections. The ability to articulate those skills, I think, becomes really, really important. Having knowledge of a university degree is one thing. I have, an arts degree, I have an engineering degree, but I also have learned a lot of other skills or competencies while doing that allows me to consider a broad range of job opportunities and makes me eligible and capable of doing many different jobs. When we look at the research and the theory and theoretical models and approaches used to consider where career integrated learning comes from, a very important piece, I think, goes back to systems theory, and this is the work of Patton and McMahon, and it looks at systems theory and the various influences on our lives. We're not siloed ourselves. We have multiple influences in our lives, and all these things impact us and where we go. We have, we talked about it earlier in the presentation, how quickly our jobs are changing and how the environment around us influences us. Sustainability is really important now, and the oceans, and that's certainly a big push in our society in terms of where technology is going. We look at past and future and present, what's happened in the past, Newfoundland's fisheries across the country. There's each province, each country will have different pressures and different issues from a provincial level, but there's also individual pressures. There's pressures from the market, the workplace, community groups. There's globalization. Think about how much technology has changed how we do work. Jobs that were once done strictly in an office, offices are shut down now and people are working from home. There's a multitude of factors that impact how we do our work and how work is changing and evolving, and how we are changing and evolving as individuals. Jennifer?
Okay, so one of the things that we did a number of years ago here at Memorial, and I didn't really introduce myself, but my name is Jennifer Brown. I'm the Director of Student Life here on campus, and career development is one of the units that are within the portfolio and something that I've worked with since I began at Memorial, actually. And so one of the things that we identified in the Career Centre a number of years ago was identifying the competencies that we want our students to have. And the teaching and learning framework, which feels like it was a little while ago now, but in that teaching and learning framework, and then there was a second iteration, one of the things that was identified was the attributes of the graduate. And these were the skills, competencies that we want our students to have upon graduation. And they were kind of complex. If you went back and looked at that document, the last iteration, it would be challenging, I think, for a student to kind of see what those skills, or to have it in a language that they would understand. I had to kind of sit down and figure it out myself. So what we decided to do was to look at, from a university perspective, what are these skills that the teaching and learning framework identified as being important upon graduation, that were the employability skills that we know employers are looking for as well. And so we looked at that, but we also went beyond that, and we looked at other documents that were available. The key readiness competencies from NACE were one of them. That's an American association. The Employability Skills 2000 Plus, which was the Conference Board of Canada. And then the School of Graduate Studies had also identified competencies. So between the four of those, we saw themes. We saw the same competencies coming up in all of them. And so we created the student success competencies that we want our Memorial graduates to have upon completion of their degrees. I think the next slide will actually show them in, so these are the 10. We have 10 competencies that we want students to have upon graduation. Of course, people will have them at different levels, but we're hoping that students, if they can see it and they can put words to it, they can identify where they may be want to gain more in certain area, or they might be weaker in one area and still need to gain some skills. But these align with the skills and competencies that we know are sought after in the workplace. And we know that these are also skills that we want as humans, as anyone, to have as they transition out of school, but also throughout the lifespan. And they're gaining these in the classroom. They're gaining these through their extracurricular activities, and through their experiences both on and off campus, both in and outside of the classroom. So this is the document that we've used for the career integrated learning as the competencies that we're trying to measure. And we're using this in other ways as well across the university, including we have an experiential transcript called MORE, so Memorial's Online Record of Experience. And students can see what experiences they can have to develop these skills. And kind of see where they are in the development of them, and then where they might want to get other experiences to develop them further.
Thank you, Jen.
Jen, it's my turn. All right. So I was fortunate enough to be asked to be part of this fabulous project because I didn't have a background in any of this like Rhonda and Jennifer. So I was really happy when my dean asked me if I'd like to be involved. So just to sort of link this to what we've already talked about, Jennifer has identified the 10 skills and attributes we want our students to have at graduation, but Rhonda's also talked about how there's that skills gap, that students, even though they may have those skills, they can't necessarily articulate them and aren't aware that they actually have them, so they therefore cannot speak to them. So this project was designed to test an intervention designed to help students better appreciate and better recognize those transferable skills that they're actually getting from completing their coursework. So the project itself was a partnership between Faculty of Education, School of Human Kinetics and Recreation, myself and Dr. Sullivan, and then Student Life. The goal of the project was to sort of twofold. First of all, we wanted to sort of at baseline examine undergrad students' knowledge of transferable skills that they develop while completing their degrees. Did they even know what a transferable skill was? And then second, through an intervention that we did in education, to help students to reflect on and become more aware of and better able to articulate those skills. So we looked at first year and senior year students in both education and human kinetics and recreation. We invited those to participate. So you can see our N there. Perfect, you can be my clicker person. We used a mixed method design, so we had two groups. We surveyed two groups. first and final year undergrad students in education, second and final year students in HKR. We targeted specific courses just so we could capture the bulk of our target students in both of those groups. Both of the groups were taking a required course. Students in the education program were our experimental group, so that's where we did our intervention, and our HKR students were our control group, so we didn't do any additional interventions there. You can see some demographics as would be expected. We had more females than males. You can see the age and whatnot, but all very typical of what we would expect of an undergrad population. So the process, what did we do? Well, Rhonda took the lead on this and met with the instructors. Rhonda and Anne-Marie, I should say, met with instructors in both HKR and education to discuss the project, what was our plan. Once we got permission from the faculty to be part of the project, then we gathered syllabi from the faculty teaching the courses in education. Both groups actually, but for the experimental group, Rhonda went through the syllabus and actually added specific annotations to the syllabus that identified some of those transferable skills that students would get. So maybe they did a term paper or a group project, or they had a case study or whatever. So Rhonda would go through that syllabus and annotate the syllabus such that students in reading the syllabus could then learn a little bit more about the specific transferable skills that they would gain. The control group, we didn't provide any additional information about transferable skills at all. We visited the classroom 3 times. I think the next slide goes into a little bit more detail. So in the experimental group, each group did a survey 3 times, so start of the term, midterm, and end of term. That survey was the same for both groups, and the survey was really designed to get a sense of what students' understanding of transferable skills were, why it was important for them to understand transferable skills, and how they potentially saw some of those transferable skills being beneficial to them throughout the rest of their schooling and once they graduated and got into the workplace. The additional intervention that we did in the experimental group was that, again, Rhonda went into each of the 3 classrooms, or went into the classroom 3 times and had discussions with the students about describing what a transferable skill is, why they might be important. So there was a little bit of instruction. It was relatively short, 10 minutes or so, Rhonda, so it was relatively short, but the students in our experimental group were getting some instruction on what transferable skills are and why they were important. All right. Some of the sample questions, so just to give you a sense of the types of questions we asked in our survey. So at the start of the term, we were very basic. We just wanted to know, do students even know what the term means? What does transferable skills mean? As we progressed, we started to ask them things like, what are you getting? What transferable skills are you actually getting from the work you're doing in the first half of the course? How relevant do you think those skills might be to future study or graduation? And then by the time we got to the end of the term, we were asking them to sort of reflect on their whole semester. What skills do you think you developed? How relevant are they going to be to your work after graduation? And do you actually feel that learning about transferable skills is going to impact you in your future work or study? So just really encouraging them to think about the transferable skills, but also to try and help them make that connection between the transferable skills they may have developed and the future work or study that they will do.
Thank you, Jeanette. So here's an example of just one activity in a course that anyone might have. This is a requirement for a presentation that was worth 30%. It involved group work in preparation than the actual presentation, and there was also an experiential component. I want to make special emphasis here in stating that the syllabus doesn't change. Your course outcomes, the work that the instructor is doing with you does not change. The content doesn't change. All we're doing is highlighting the other competencies or transferable skills that you may gain while you're doing the work in that course. And something I often did, or always did when I went into a classroom, is I would challenge students that while I'm talking in this class about about your transferable skills learned in this course, think about it for your other courses. Think about it for other things that you're doing, whether it's on a sports team or the work you're doing or other courses. There are other transferable skills that if you were to go into an interview and someone asked you about skills, that you would be able to comment on them, but then give examples of them as well. So for this particular presentation, you're involved in, there's interpersonal skills that you're learning, and believe you me, that is a really important skill for employability and employment, to be able to work with other people and communicate with other people, to work in groups. Your ability to do research skills, oral presentation skills are also really important in many professions now, especially with so much going online. There's a need for more and more of this type of skill. Your leadership skills, the ability to work within a time frame, accepting responsibility, being able to summarize or integrate and assimilate work that you're doing. So those types of skills, to be able to apply knowledge that you've learned to practice, creativity and critical thinking skills. These are just some of the transferable skills that you're learning with, that you have an opportunity to learn with this task. But like everything in life, what you get out of it depends on what you put into it. And that's why I always use the word, you may learn these skills. You may benefit from these things, depending on how much you give to your course and the work that you're doing in it. Jeanette, over to you.
All right, so what did we find? So this was the question, how knowledgeable are you of transferable skills? We had them students rated on a scale of 1 to 5. Our 3 contacts are along the bottom. The lightish green is education, and the darker green is HKR. So not surprisingly, at the outset of the study, both groups were pretty well dead on with their level of knowledge of transferable skills. Interestingly, both groups' knowledge of transferable skills increased somewhat as a result of just probably doing the survey, and we're getting them to sort of think about transferable skills. But by the time we got to our last contact, our intervention group certainly showed a significant increase in their knowledge of transferable skills over the control group. So that was a positive finding. It was a finding we were hoping to find. And the intervention did have an impact on students' knowledge of transferable skills. The second question that we looked at, or that we're going to talk about today, is how relevant, we asked the students, how relevant do you feel transferable skills are to your future work? We didn't ask this in the first contact. It wasn't a question in the first contact, hence the reason why it doesn't show up here. And in both instances, our intervention group reported feeling that transferable skills were slightly more relevant to future work skills than our control group did. Again, these differences were significant. So again, that Rhonda being in the classroom, annotating the syllabus, talking to the students about transferable skills, getting them to think about transferable skills, seems to have resulted in them being much more aware of how relevant those transferable skills were to future work. Do you want to?
Jennifer?
Oh, yeah.
I'm putting Jennifer on the spot now, but I think she's...
No worries. So again, this goes back to, all of this was around increasing students' awareness of the skills they're gaining in the classroom. And when we asked for some of that qualitative feedback from the students in the survey, it certainly was, I think, very encouraging for us as the researchers to see some of the comments. So when asked, tell us what comes to mind when you see the term transferable skills, they have the concept of what it is being able to use those skills in many contexts. Things we learn in the classroom or other settings can be practically used in other settings. I think that's a brilliant, actually, definition. We should source that and use that, because that's exactly what it is. Skills that can be applied in an academic setting as well as elsewhere in a person's life, and they identified some of these skills. such as problem solving, people skills, organization, working in a team environment or individually. And you can see, these are coming from various students in various stages of their post-secondary journey. Another student in recreation said, it makes me think of skills you can take from one place that you learn and apply them to other places. Fantastic. And a student in year 3 of kinesiology said, transferable skill is one you learn in one context that can be used in an alternate context. So again, the ability to develop a skill in one place, but have it transferable to multi places in and outside of the classroom. So, we do feel like they were getting that. You can see that, I think, in the data as well. And then how do you feel about learning about your own transferable skills and the impact it will have on your study or work? They identified as great things to bring up in an interview, impacted my study because I appreciate what I'm learning more. And I think that that's a fabulous quote there, because again, when students see the relevance, they don't always see the relevance of what they're learning or how it might have an impact. But when they can see that, yes, learning this or having this experience of presenting with a group, while it might seem very, one-off, it actually is developing a skill set that is developing that to go elsewhere. So another student said, it allowed me to become more aware of my strengths so I can use them to my advantage, which is fantastic. I'm more open-minded about my skills and more aware now, thus I am able to improve and acquire new transferable skills. So this really is about increasing awareness because with that awareness and helping them connect the dots between the different experiences they're having really is enlightening the students to value those experiences more and appreciate being able to articulate them in a variety of settings, such as a job interview or on an application for grad school or whatever that might be.
Thank you, Jennifer. One thing that always stands out in my mind, many years ago, taking kids back and forth to hockey, I met this mom who was a drug rep, and I asked her, how did you become a drug rep? How did that happen? And she said she had an education degree. And I said, well, how did you make a transition from an education degree to a drug rep? Well, she said, I was in teaching for a while, and she said, I wanted a change. And the job came up, and if you're a drug rep, you're teaching people about medication. You have to be able to research. You have to be able to speak to others and use good communication skills. And she said, I have all those skills as a teacher, and I was able to talk about those in an interview and speak to those, and I got the position. So, and she said she loves the work. There's a lot of commonalities and similarities between the different roles. So it just goes to show that her awareness of even having those skills enabled her to think outside the box in terms of her career and where she went in her career. One final note here, one thing I wanted to note is that throughout this, you'll see that you'll find as you think about it as well, many skills, many transferable skills are integrated or infused into our curriculum. The key to career integrated learning is that we focus on the student's ability to reflect and articulate those skills. We have them. The problem is we don't know we have them. So it's the ability of being able to reflect, think about them, and then be able to articulate them as needed. It's huge. It's also not as needed with other people, but even as needed within ourselves when we look at self-development and growth. I need to be a stronger leader, so maybe I should take on a stronger leadership role when I'm doing group work. I don't like presentations, so maybe when I'm in a group, I should make sure that I have a key role in the presentation. So there are things that we can do to self-develop as well once we become more aware of where our strengths and weaknesses are in our transferable skills. Jennifer?
So the limitations, of course, there's always limitations to any study. And so the findings of this research project are based on the results of a small population in 2 faculties at Memorial, but it does build off the research from a number of years ago, which found similar results. So we would be excited to continue this type of research and determine in different faculties, in different levels that the student is in, different years, and see about the transferability of the findings. And so we're always looking for champions, people who are looking to do innovative and new things in their classes across campus, all campuses actually, to integrate the career integrated learning approach into curriculum. And again, I think what the beauty of this was, number one, I think every single faculty member wants to ensure their students get the most out of their course. And I think there is an assumption, it's not an assumption, you as faculty know that your students are gaining certain skills as a result of the way you've set up the curriculum and how you're teaching the content. And I think we sometimes assume that students obviously know that they're getting these skills as well, and the data shows us that they don't necessarily know that. And there is a great paper that I read. It was from a Southwestern University in Ontario, and it was from the psychology department. And again, it was looking at, they had competencies and skills that they say their students get up by the time they graduate. And when they tested it between first years and fourth years, they were shocked that the findings showed that the students didn't identify that they had developed those skills, I don't think, as clearly as what they had hoped. So there is, we would think, yes, of course you're getting communication skills, you're presenting, you're doing this, you're doing that. But it was never really pointed out, or there was no reflection on that with the student. So they didn't realize that this was a skill that they were gaining, that they could have the confidence to say, I have gained this skill through my psychology degree, and articulate that. So I think there's always an opportunity there to work with people who are interested in doing it. And the beauty of what Rob and Rhonda created was, this isn't changing the curriculum, it's working with the curriculum, that the syllabus that you've already created, and then more clearly articulating maybe on the syllabus or to the students the skills that they are going to gain. I'll give you an outside the classroom example. So we have the on-campus employment program at Memorial called MUSEP, and we also have ISWIP. And so within those, we now ask anyone who's applying to hire students under that program, we have the 10 competencies identified, and we ask the employer to tick off, the on-campus employer to tick off the competencies the students should get as a result of working in the library, or working on a front desk at the registrar's office, or working as a research assistant, whatever it is the job is. And we have that now embedded into the job description. So the student is going in because they want to get a job, they want to get experience, and they want a paycheck. That's usually the number one reason that students want to apply for a job. But we also have listed, these are the skills you will gain as a result of this job if you get it. And it's about raising that awareness of, right, I will get this besides just a paycheck. And I've had those conversations with students who, they've come in for the paycheck, but at the end of the experience, they say, oh my goodness, I've learned this, I've learned that, I have a greater network, I feel more confident doing this, all as a result of increasing the students' awareness. And I think that can happen in the classroom more effectively and maybe efficiently as well through this type of process, when you're looking with what you've already created and just pulling out those pieces with the support, of course, to start off with Rhonda, her expertise, and myself and Jeanette and whoever else. So if you want to be a champion, this is our call to action. By all means, reach out, and we'd love to have a chat and see how we can expand on this further.
Okay. So thank you everyone for your attention. I wonder now if there are any questions.
So the first thing they ask if you will share the slides, specifically the competency for the student success. I found it online, I can share it.
It is online, yes. It's on the website for the Career Center as well, in Student Life. So it is available
share
online.
The slides?
But we can share the slides. I'm sure
Absolutely.
We can share them with whoever and send them out. Yeah. But it is available if you search Student Success Competencies Memorial, hopefully it will pop up.
Maybe we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if any
I
questions.
have one question. So I'm a PCI at Faculty of Business, so I was wondering if I want to do the same thing, if I can have your help, or I don't know what would be the steps. So should I contact, and then you will give me some questions, survey, or the process? Or?
Come see me. I'll be glad to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll tell you, Jennifer talked about a work story while we're waiting to see if there's any other questions. I think about the Karate Kid movie often. If we remember back to the Karate Kid, the sensei, or what was his
Mr.
name?
Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi would make the Karate Kid clean and do all these really strange things, and he got really frustrated and didn't understand why he had to stand on a post or clean a car. He had him do all these chores. And what Mr. Miyagi talked about was all of these chores and activities were giving him the discipline that he needed to do karate better and be more focused in karate. So those are the transferable skills that we create in everyday life, whether it's doing a sport or being a captain of a team or participating in a sport or volunteering or balancing life. They are all transferable skills that we need, not in our own lives, but also when we look for employment, that we need to be able to be aware of, reflect on, and be aware of in those situations.
I mean, I've had many conversations with, I think of new graduates, and I'll just give you a quick example as well. So I met with a student, there was a couple that come to mind. One had done a physics degree and one had done an education degree. So the education degree student came in and was meeting with me in the Career Center and said, I just finished my degree. And I was like, that's awesome, congratulations, that's fantastic, you're about to launch out into the world, how exciting. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? You don't seem excited. He said, I don't like kids. I do not like kids. And I said, okay. And he was devastated, right? He was devastated because he had done, I think the program that was the 1 year, he had done his internship and then realized, no, the classroom setting was not for me. I don't think he didn't like kids. It was just, I don't think that was maybe an environment that he felt he would thrive in. And so he was devastated. And I said, you know what? This is fantastic. I am so glad that you've identified this now before you go out to teach kindergarten, and you are an unhappy kindergarten teacher and you set those students up for like an unhappy year in school or whatever. So I said, best to figure it out now. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? Like, I have to go back and start over. And I was like, absolutely not. Let's talk about all the things that you've gained as a result of your education degree. And just like the teacher who went on to pharmaceutical sales, this young man left feeling like, oh my God, I'm actually employable. I can do other things. I mean, just think about it. Not everyone who does education goes on to be a teacher. Not everyone who does nursing goes on to be the traditional nurse. Not everyone. I'm a linguist. I did linguistics. I was never going to be a linguist. I was going to take me somewhere else. And the other young man, he did a physics degree, and he came in and he said, yeah, I have a physics degree. And I was in awe because I won't tell you what I got in physics in my first year. And I said, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. And then he said, yeah, but I don't want to do anything with this. I have no interest in this. And so I was curious, and I said, well, how did you end up doing this? And this is sidebar, I know, to our thing. And he said, well, it was easy. I actually found this quite easy. So I did a few courses, and next thing you got 5 or 6 courses done, and you're headed towards this degree. But it wasn't because of interest, it was just because it was something that I was good at. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to manage people's money. And I said, okay. I said, well, you are in luck because all of the financial institutions hire all disciplines. They don't care what degree you have, as long as you've got your degree, shows that you've got that level of education that you can learn. And again, we sat down and talked about all the skills that he gained as a result of the physics degree. And who wouldn't, I wanted to hire him to work in career development or wherever he wanted to go. But both of these individuals came in and they were down here. They thought they had to start over. And they had a full 40 credits done in a degree program that had a ton of transferable skills that could take them anywhere. And when they left, they were up here and they were confident and they felt they could go out into the world, not exactly sure where they were going to go, but they could be successful with the degree that they had. And so that is what this is about, because no matter what you're teaching, we don't know where the students are going to go. I think that's exciting as well. I know it's also very stressful when you're the person who doesn't know where you're going to go, but it's also very exciting because the world is your oyster. But being aware of the skills that you've gained as a result of whatever degree you've done and understanding that that can take you in all kinds of directions is a superpower. It's not that you're pigeonholed in one area. You actually have the ability to go anywhere. You can go on to grad school and do just about anything. You can, go down any path that you choose. And that's what we want our students to graduate with. I have a linguistics and psychology degree as a Bachelor of Arts for my first degree. And I don't want anyone to leave here feeling like I only have an arts degree. I'm not sure what I can do. I want people to leave here feeling like I have an arts degree and this is what I have to offer the world. That's where we want our students to be when they cross the stage. And I'm lucky to be part of it when they cross the stage. And so I think we all play a part in that. In the classroom, outside the classroom, building up our students, reflecting with them, asking like that question of what do you want to do? How does this relate? Helping them see that. And it can start with the syllabus. It can start as simple as identifying those transferable skills right there on the most important document that they get in every single course. Sorry, that's my soapbox. I'm going to talk about this.
And Jennifer, you can see the excitement. Like, this is really near and dear to our hearts. It is a really important project. I had students go to a career fair. One talked about their education degrees. The other one talked about their transferable skills. And the ones that went with an education degree, many booths turned them away and said, sorry, we don't have anything for teachers. The other group that went and spoke about their transferable skills got a lot more feedback, a lot more engagement and conversation, and actually had someone say to them, did you sneak in here? You're not really from university. Because they weren't talking about their degrees, and there were connections that they could make with a lot of different companies that were presented or that were there at that career fair that day. So it's really an important piece of your learning that can help you develop for yourself, but also develop when you think about the world of work and where you're going.
Yeah, there is another professor from Grenfell, and she wants to follow up with you guys and like learn more about the process. So I think it's a good idea to send one of your emails or contacts to the group so they can follow up on the content.
Yeah, sure.
I can certainly do that. I'll send it to the registrants after the session. Share the
Sounds great.
information.
Thank you. And thank you to all who are listening out there who took the time to attend this session today.